The topic that we're covering here today is ensuring client onboarding success even when you're not in the room, right? And so obviously this was a popular topic with more than 75 of you signing up for this. We do this presentation a couple of times, just focusing on a couple of different areas. Today, we're obviously looking specifically at onboarding, and I'll talk about that as we progress through this. But of course, as many of you know, I'm Joey Connect. I'm a senior leader with our company, Proteus and Proteus Engage, one of our flagship products. We are based out of the Omaha, Lincoln area. Go Huskers! If you're in any of this, and I've been with the firm. Phew, I'm getting to be a gray hair. I'm 48, and I've been with the firm 20, 25, 27 years, so somewhere in there. So a long time, and a lot of fun stories to share. So with that said, let's get into it, because a lot of what we're talking about here today isn't just a pitch. Clearly, it's not a demo. It's what we've seen, heard, and know what is going on and how we're helping solve the problem overall. So let's get into it. So the first thing I'll start with is many of you are here because you're asking yourself what is really going on during onboarding, right? Whoa, somebody's got a lot of feedback. If you could mute yourself, thank you. Um, but ultimately, it's about what is really going on, because there's obviously a couple of critical touch points when you're on the phone with the client, etc. But there's a lot of what we will call homework that to really make onboarding successful, you have to obviously achieve really good progress in between those set meetings, and that's really a big challenge for groups, and probably you included, anybody. And so, how do we optimize that? Because that's really where we make the greatest progress, right? And doing that in an efficient and obviously impressive way. So we're going to come back to that. And then something for you to think about. I know these numbers kind of change a little bit in a couple of different areas, but ultimately 40% of customer churn lives in kind of the area we're going to be talking about. I'll break that down a little bit more specifically here in a second, but this dramatically impacts the success or failure, basically, of your product line and company. CS teams, specifically in kind of technology-based companies, other groups like that, are really probably accountable for about 30% of the churn. 70% of the churn lives in other areas, right? And one of those areas is if you're an onboarding specialist, implementation specialist, leader, sales leader, like a lot of this area is on you. And so that's why we're going to talk about this, because it's important to know that all of these dots are connected overall. But ultimately, the core of today's presentation is when you're not talking with the customer, you're not in the room during the onboarding experience, how do we create success for you? And again, nomenclature, I'll call that homework a lot of the time during the presentation, and that's what I'm meaning by that. All right. So for many of you, I can predict that this is what keeps you up at night, because this we just know. Because this is why we talk, and is you have lack of visibility on the onboarding process and where everybody's at. For some of you, that's going to be on both sides of the equation, meaning your own team and of course the customer side. So in all of these conversations we have today about homework, about visibility, about accountability, it's not all blame the customer, blame the customer, blame the customer. There is a huge amount of internal blame, in a good way, right? Because that means you can fix it, and that's what it's all about. Is first you have to identify it. And like I said, I'm 48. One of my favorite cartoons when I was a kid was GI Joe, right? And the slogan there was "Now you know, and knowing is half the battle," right? Like that really is kind of the Johari window of business. And so a lot of you are up at night because you have fear of poor visibility as to what the heck is going on internally, externally. You're definitely not happy in many cases, probably around the momentum of your onboardings, which affects for many of you the time to value, TTV, which we have plenty of other presentations and resources on our website related to core metrics of onboarding, about 13 of them that we help clients track and work and progress against. But time to value is very, very critical in all onboarding so that the customer realizes success. You always want that to happen sooner, definitely before later. Many of you, when you come to us to partner with us, but in general, have massive amount of silos, whether that's again internal and also external, especially if you're a if anybody on here is deploying into like mid-cap to enterprise, you not only have silos, you have 13 countries that you need to herd, and that's really challenging. Fear of accountability is another fear that's keeping you up at night. For some of you, that might be, again, for your internal team, but how do you hold employees in a completely different company accountable to getting things done for you? Just kind of play that out in your head, right? That's what you're doing when you're onboarding. And so how do you get them to do, air quote, their homework when you can't take them to McDonald's for a Sunday? Okay. And then what you're ultimately really, really scared about is the phone rings and fear of surprises, right? And the surprise circle that it really keeps you up at night, right? Because something has gone haywire. And so today we're going to cover, try to unlock these fears a little bit. For some of you, you might have one or two of those fears, or all of them. But ultimately, what we're going to walk through here today is there is a remedy to this. There is an approach you can take. Now, clearly, we sell a product to do this, so I'll talk some elements around that, but many of the concepts and ideas I provide here, you can literally do today, okay? You didn't sign up for a demo. You signed up for concepts that help you work. Clearly, we execute the nines out of it, but ultimately, I want to give you all real world and really tangible things that you can take and go do something with. If you only have one onboarding a year and you're a startup, you can use this immediately. All right. So we're going to go through a couple of concepts here, and then I will
Sorry, I'm
unlock
in a
basically four
webinar. I don't
approaches.
even know how this webinar came across my plate, to be
Yeah.
honest, but
It's a
I've
great
turned it down.
webinar. It's a great
Is it for
webinar,
doc?
whoever that
Megan?
is. It's a
No,
great
no,
webinar.
it's
Megan,
something that
Megan,
somehow came in through my email and it sounded
Awesome.
interesting.
it's Megan. If she can
wow,
mute her line, that'd be
it's
great.
Hi,
onboarding,
can
Hi,
showing
everyone
Megan.
onboarding across multiple
Hi,
mute?
Megan.
industries. So
Yeah, thank
yeah,
you. It's a
fun.
great webinar.
Everybody
Mute
mute.
So
Yeah,
everybody.
everybody
yeah, how
mute.
many
Yeah.
people do you have on your team?
I'm gonna mute everybody there. We've joined another call. I apologize, everybody. Um, we had somebody really get into a real fight one time, which was actually awesome. Not with me, with a coworker, like a hands down, like somebody walked in their office and had a fight, and we just all of us kind of just joined the fight. It was absolutely amazing. So, okay, I'll continue here. Thank you. Um, so what's keeping you up? We already covered that. Let's see how I recover. All right. So the first thing we got to level set on is the environment, because the environment has changed substantially, right? So with the environment changing, um, there's just the ecosystem has changed. Like I said, I've been in this hustle for many, many years, and a lot of things have changed specifically in the last 10 years, 15 years. And it just is now amplifying like anything else very, very quickly. And that is how many people are involved in these processes, right? So if you're doing a B2B transaction, a B2B onboarding, the number of players in that process, not only internally from your team, where you might have silos on that, and also deployment partner where you're going, where the product or project you're doing. We work with tech companies, consulting firms, really all firms. And this is it's camp run amok now. On your side, you're probably going to have, depending on the dollar size, 3 to 10 individuals on your team involved in the onboarding process, specifically in that handoff experience at the beginning from sales, then all the way into SMEs and product experts and security and all that jazz, contracting, literally, 3 to 10 for sure, for sure. On the onboarding side, depending on the level of complexity of the offering you have, you can have obviously 10 to, we have some like hospital deployments and other financial institutions, 50 people on the deployment side. So you have a tremendous amount of individuals that need to be kept in the loop, progressing in the same way, the boat rowing all in the same cycle to get there. And for many groups, they do this via email, which is not a management tool or an effective tool for this. And I'm going to point out some of the critical things you can do today, like I talked about, that can help you kind of get better visibility on this, control the herd, right? Getting all the cats organized, create that visibility that is needed so that you can properly know what is going on when you're not in the room, right? So you can't just jump to getting to know what's in the room. I'm going to walk you through how you can take baby steps to success to get there. Okay. So the environment, I just want to make sure level setting. This is kind of where the greatest amount of risk in that homework risk in the onboarding process itself can basically carry through. Okay, so this is an environmental challenge. Nothing you can do about it. You can complain, it doesn't matter. This is going to happen to you. If you're new to the hustle, this is going to happen to you 100%. Now, this is where churn lives. This is where expanded timelines come into it, and I'm going to kind of walk through all that. But just level setting is the environment we're talking about. Okay, the next piece of the puzzle, so we're on the same page. Everybody's a little bit different. This is a general, obviously, webinar, but we have clients that consider all three of these phases or areas as onboarding. Some of you only consider maybe number two as what you consider onboarding. But we have many clients that when we say onboarding to them, if they're tech, professional services, you name it, construction, I don't care, government, they frequently consider, when they use the word onboarding, to consider the last 25% of the sale, because if it's a complex offering, your SMEs and other people have been involved, hopefully they better have been, in the last 25% of the sale, because that's where misalignment and bad onboarding starts. Your actual onboarding experience actually starts before the contract is even signed for many clients, because it's the GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. I'll include some GIGO resources in my follow-up there. So everybody's a little bit different, but many of you, the last 25% of the sale is where actually onboarding starts. Okay. The second one here, number two, clearly is what we would proverbially, yeah, go with it, is onboarding, right? The typical onboarding ecosystem. And then you got number three, which is the first 120 days post launch. For many, many clients, this is also part of the onboarding team's responsibility. And then later on, it might be jumped out to a CS team or stays with the same people the entire time. So I'm just bringing up that a lot of times I was, yeah, what words become pictures for people. So by me saying something, like I said, homework earlier, words create pictures in all of your minds. And so what I'm trying to make sure is, some of you might be thinking like this, 1, 2, and 3. Some of you might be thinking of number 2, but you can abstract out the pieces accordingly, because this is where still failure lives, is in the homework on all of these. All right. So just level setting on the areas to consider of this as you're mind mapping to yourself areas of opportunity and how to drive this. All right. So, excuse me, there's that piece. And now the next critical piece, what type of onboarding scenario are you? So this starts with you reflecting, what are we? Like, where do we lie in this? Because how you approach this is going to be different. Are you more of a self-serve model where 70 to 90%? Are you a mid cap? And again, these are me just providing some classifications, obviously. B2B solutions, mid cap, it's like a 50-50 kind of thing. Enterprise, where are you sitting? Are they doing most of the work and it's around 40%, 30%? And obviously there's no fixed number in any of these. And what I put there is, what category do you fall into? You might have products in all of these. You might have blended strategies around this, but it's important to kind of know who you are first and what your goal is. Like, how much are we trying to do for them and how much are we asking for them to do? Critical, right? And so that's kind of something to reflect on if you're looking at your own product or service portfolio. What and where do you want to be? Clearly, like, maybe right now, every time you're launching a client, the client or you are doing all the work, and what you want to get to is where the client can do all the work, or a large majority of that. Great. You work towards that, and I'll show you how you do that. Or maybe some of you want to really do all the onboarding and only have the client come in to validate certain elements or steps of that. Great. So as I present here these solutions moving forward, you might want to think about how this plays into the types of onboarding that you provide. This is not judging. This isn't not, there's no good, bad. I assume many of you might even have a blend like I put there, where you might have some starter products and then some later more complex products or offerings. What I do know with 100% confidence, projects used to be sold in lump sum, meaning you sign a huge contract and we're going to do a big onboarding. And what almost every industry, services, software, whatever it is, there's increased pressure to date before you get married, phase the deployments, and instead of signing up, whatever, $250,000 contract. They want to start with a $50,000 contract. You got to deliver well, and then they'll unlock additional modules from you or buy more projects from you, et cetera, et cetera. So no matter what, there's a continuous kind of onboarding environment that has to happen with clients. It's usually not a one and done, especially if the product pricing is, north of 50,000, or, give or take. Every industry is different, but there's going to be this dating and then repeating onboardings from there. Okay. I've kind of framed it enough here for you guys, just again, because these kind of they alter some of the rhetoric I will say here, but you now know what I mean and how I'm framing it. So let's get into the 4 critical elements, what I call for homework success, right? Because the true differentiation of whether or not you have very good meetings with your client during the onboarding is typically, have you framed things correctly? Have they done their homework? Have you validated what they've submitted back to you, or what they've done configuration wise, whatever it is? The real difference is in the in between of the meetings. Especially the meetings become crap if they haven't done their homework, because now you're wasting even time on meetings. And ultimately, this dramatically affects the time to value, TTV, of that new onboarding. Okay. So again, kind of framing it for you. So there are 4 kind of critical things that kind of build upon each other, because like I said, you just can't jump one fell swoop to complete visibility on their homework and success around basically the in-betweens, right? And so I'm going to kind of foundationally lay this out for you, and you'll see how they kind of build upon each other, and then where the results really lie. And at the end, I'll show you just a very high level example of just to bring it to life so you guys understand. So let's get into it. So the first, herding the cats. So I cannot stress, if where a lot of inefficiency, where a lot of failure in the in-betweens is that there isn't a centralized place for your team and the customer team, again, assuming it's now 10 plus people, right, to organize and where the data is going to go back and forth, the files, the sharings, the accountability, who's doing what, when, where. All of this has to become centralized. Email is not a solution. SharePoint files are not a solution. Those are just, they're great elements, don't get me wrong, and they're used in the process, but ultimately you have to create centralized ecosystems to effectively communicate and collaborate with the customer on progress and everything. It's mission critical that everything is centralized. Just the centralization factor can be a seismic bump for many organizations. Just that. We haven't even gotten into some of the other concepts that really multiply the benefit effect, but literally just getting everybody on the same page in a centralized environment can dramatically affect the success of your onboarding. And I obviously would hope you would do it with us, but just do it. like it will dramatically get you in the right framework and mindset for moving forward to enhance that and really capture the benefits. But the first step, is getting your house organized, right? It's just getting things centralized, organized, so there's visibility on all the things that you need, right? So that's mission critical. So think about that from a perspective, because just you got to get everything organized in order to then properly execute, manage against that, and have visibility on things. So again, build your house, get it all centralized first. Critical step of kind of herding the cats, getting visibility to things, again, because the end goal is to be able to know what's going on when you're not in the room, right? So the second element that is mission critical, and I don't care how you frame it, we call them mutual plans. And so mutual plans are a very strong driver and have extremely high correlation to homework getting done on time, early, and quality. And so if you haven't heard of a mutual plan, we call it a mutual plan, which is powered by our checklist system and other things. But a mutual plan is is basically mutual. And I think that's where people fail dramatically, is when you're onboarding a client, you're kind of pushing and making all of these requests to the client, when in fact you should be taking them through a shared goals environment, right? That shared goals environment gets the buy-in from the customer. We have defined responsibilities. You can see it all on the screen. I won't go through it, but a mutual plan, these are the critical elements to change the onboarding experience from us trying to get you set up or us telling you what we need from you to mutually how are we going to be successful together. And it's a level of candidness that has to be right out the gate in the onboarding experience, because what you're building is a joint plan where it's critical that you and your team are executing at high velocity, and same thing with the client, and you're educating them as to why they need these things. Okay, the other part of this, and I might be skipping a little bit ahead here, but one of the big elements I love about this is removing a tremendous amount of risk in the transaction at the early stages, because this allows you to identify potential problem areas, potential resource constraints, other things that are going to be peekaboos that would have been stressful events 1 week from now, 2 weeks from now, etc. So let me dig into this a little bit more, because for us, for the proof is in the performance, the consistency of being able to do this repeatedly all lies in here. So the components of a mutual plan are just clear expectations. And so I'm going to share with you here a little trick of the trade. So yeah, of course, they're setting deadlines and all of these things, action steps, assigning tasks, really creating clear visibility for your internal roles. And of course, what the expectations of the customer are and why they should be doing this, right? The benefit of it. Going to throw out a word here, probably most of you don't know, but part of this process, and I can share additional resources on this, we love the concept of pre-mortems, and so do our clients. And this is done when you're building the onboarding plan with them, is if something is going to go wrong, what is it in the future? And what this allows you to do is to identify peekaboo problems, elements of resources limited on the side, other elements, of course, of they don't believe in the training process or how is it going to be deployed or whatever it might be. So pre-mortems are kind of critical, because what that does is that helps level set your role, your team's role in it, where we're doing this together. Let's try to identify problems before they become problems. And obviously, in all of these transactions, you have some sort of internal champion, right? Some POC, primary contact, right, on the client side. So you can do this via with them to make sure that these mutual plans are the best possible, because you're being candid with them and helping to set the right expectations. And more importantly, that internal champ can give you some feedback internally about where there might be some roadblocks moving forward, right? And so the easiest, just like an easy one, is like, well, we're going to need Tiffany in week 3, but Tiffany's on PTO for 2 weeks in the Caribbean. Like, that's a pretty easy one to identify before it becomes a massive problem, then shifts all the other responsibilities, right? Another kind of critical point of these mutual plans that helps you kind of move the rock forward faster is when you're being onboarded, the company wants to see pretty immediate results. So when we say time to value, you want to be fast to time to value. How do you unlock what that value is to the people you're deploying with, and making sure, if you can, prioritize that value to come sooner rather than later, right? So maybe you're deploying 9 modules, but one of those areas is an immediate bleed point. You probably should preference, if you can, that point first so that they start to see benefit. All right. And this is all through conversation and then the establishing and the accountability around what we would call mutual plans. You can immediately do this today. You can immediately have pre-mortems. Like, all of these things are turnkey for you. And then, of course, obviously, we have platforms to execute this at scale and efficiency. But the point is, these little steps here obviously can dramatically affect the outcomes of your homework, which is the stuff that needs to get achieved in between your client onboarding meetings, right? And tons of benefits. I kind of highlighted some of these. The risk mitigation, of course, is what we're all about. You can have a lot of flexibility in it, and clearly you have much better outcomes because you're predicting and taking into consideration a lot of hiccups that would have happened, right? And you're getting buy-in from both teams. They're called verbal contracts, guys. That's what this is. Will you commit to doing this? Yes. You're setting dates with them. Yes. Will we achieve? We'll celebrate when we get to this. You then can share those with maybe their managers on their side. So there's even more buy-in and accountability. And so by having it clearly mapped out, and let's call it 80%, like you're never going to get perfect. Even at 80%, it's going to give you huge outcomes. All right. Mutual plans, real critical piece to this puzzle here. Next one. And again, today, literally you can today. Next piece, I alluded to it a little bit, but they kind of get lost in the mix. Internal champions. So as I mentioned earlier, there's kind of three areas that a lot of this all starts. One is the last 25% of the sale when you're working with your internal champ on getting buy-in. And then every single one of you has an internal champ for the onboarding process. Now, whether or not you're teeing them up for success is exactly what we're talking about here today. So the aforementioned centralizing everything so they know where everything is at. Two, mutual plans to make sure them and their employees are teed up for success. You have to provide your internal champs, in essence, the infrastructure and the tools needed to make them successful, to make it easier to hold their team accountable and drive success on the project. We've done entire presentations just on internal champ empowerment, but you cannot empower your internal champ if you're working through Excel, email, or other non-centralized, non-optimized mutual plan ecosystems to drive them forward. Remember, you're not around 90+% of the onboarding. So how do you equip him and her as your internal champ with an environment to be successful, to be able to communicate and collaborate and help drive against their team's accountability of getting things done, right? Huge, huge piece. You can see how these start to layer into optimizing and a complete experience for the onboarding on both sides, right? Internal and external. Don't forget about them. Like I said, it's mission critical. They are really the critical piece on the timelines. The mutual plans help tee it up for success, but the execution comes from, again, the internal champ. Very, very critical piece. Again, something you could think about and do today. The last one is clearly, like anything else in life, if you get organized, you got it in a centralized environment, there's expectations around it, you can then start to integrate automations around that. Risk management. Things are taking slower than normal. Automatic task creation, automatic escalation, all of these things to protect the house. And that's ultimately where this entire recipe comes together, right? Many of you probably watched Shark Tank, right? And there'll be a nice lady or guy who makes apple pies. And they're like, well, where are you at with your apple pie operation? They're like, well, I bake them on Friday nights and Saturdays. Now I got 25 ovens in my garage, right? Eventually, you need to get that to a co-packer level, right? And that's ultimately kind of the same progress here, is getting to the point where now it's centralized. You can build in all of this risk management, visibility, all sorts of automations and risk management to drive success and protect the house even more so. Plus, it makes your teams massively efficient and quality. Many of you might be adding a lot of onboarding people. Well, you plug and play them into a very proven environment. If you're needing to cut some costs, sometimes the infrastructure like this allows you to redirect some of your investments. If you already have team members, they can work on other high priority items. Creates a lot of efficiency when you can start to leverage the data that is being communicated, shared, optimized. You get to max performance levels and customer satisfaction. Let's just be honest. Customer satisfaction is a key here. I say this in a lot of presentations. I'm a New Yorker. If you buy a pizza pie now from Domino's, not great pie, but let's just use Domino's because they're nationwide, you'll know. Ultimately, for a $10 transaction, you see it being baked, you see it coming out of the oven, you see it getting in a car, and you see it getting to your house around the corner. In B2B onboarding, we need to have the same level of expectation of communication, collaboration, visibility on what's going on, and driving that home for success. It's a must. And that's the expectation of your clients. Every single one of your clients has Netflix. Why? On demand, 24 hours a day. I know what's going on and I can get caught up, right? It's just the expectation. Okay. So kind of laid out there, the four blocks. Proof is in the performance. You're like, Joe, in general, I agree with that. So let me kind of break down for you, and I'm going to go quick here because I do want to show something. I'll just chalk high level, but easily, these are the things you can expect. A 30% uptick in efficiency. meaning how much time on task your team members are having to do, plus on the client side, because they're properly guided, proper expectations, everything there. Just map that against your numbers, and that's pretty much guaranteed. For many, it's more. Okay. Just operational efficiency. Engagement on the client side, 24 hours a day, knowing what's going on, unlocking all of the visibility because you know what's going on the other side of the equation. There are no more dark spots. 40% improved engagement creates a tremendous amount of efficiency in operations, and you're finding problems fast if there are problems. Okay. Just reality. Next one, increased visibility. Again, eyes on the prize. Tremendous amount of visibility for, I mean, these numbers can be stupid because if you're in email or Excel right now and there's no visibility whatsoever, you have no visibility, everything's latent, everything's old. I mean, the improvements in visibility would be like 10,000%. I'm not going to put a stupid number like that out there, right? It's just huge. You know everything that is going on in all elements of internal your teams and the onboarding environment, client. Last but not least, the accountability. Um, Now you have an environment where you can hold both sides, your internal team, and of course the customer, accountable in a gentle and forecasting way. And so it's more commitment because you can just task people. People won't do the work. The why behind being tasked, the why behind doing this, and how it's all integral to the overall experience via a mutual plan or something. That's why you get the movement and the why, right? I think you're all smart business people, so you can kind of connect the dots there. So let's just for a quick millisecond, as I said, I like to be kind of tight on presentations. I've shared with you quite a few takeaways that you could immediately enact today. Centralization, mutual plan concept. Obviously, I would like you to think about a pre-mortem if you want to in there, because that can really strengthen the quality of that mutual plan, right? Obviously, other elements of operational efficiency and tracking of that, and think about your internal champ. That's really your customer, the internal champ, because they need the tools in the environment to win there for you. So let me just show you here, very, very high level. This is just a very, very simple use case of a onboarding environment for a client. And this is a typical structure on the left-hand side. This, of course, will be branded as you where it says Falcon, that's going to be the client. And on the left-hand side, you have a discovery with clients, which is typically the sales process, which is a sales mutual plan, and the last 25% to get all the proper information. I just laid out here just a simple onboarding, maybe a two-phased onboarding, maybe second phase is you're actually deploying something, doing installs. We do a ton of that. On the left-hand side here, this is your team. This, of course, is the client team. Obviously, there will be 10 people here, 20 people here, whatever. And then ultimately here in the middle is what we would call a success plan or a mutual plan, which really drives all the communication and collaboration. And for just fun sake, just looking at this one, solution design session, you might have different kinds of tasks going on here. So there's a primary CLI, and then there's sub items on everything, which can be internally assigned for your team, which only your team sees it. And then same thing, it can be assigned out to the customer and anybody on their team. So you're creating that visibility, the accountability, setting the dates, process management. If clients upload documentation to you, you can put them through sub workflows to make sure it's not garbage so that you don't have all of these pop-up things. And again, today's not a demo, but ultimately this is all done in a centralized, secure environment to escalate the customer through an entire process of the onboarding from handoff, everything integrated with Slack, Teams, you name it, your CRMs, everything. So all the data is centralized, complete visibility, not only to your teams and others. All sorts of resource libraries, all of this becomes templated for high scale, high usability, high visibility, everything. And we're tracking literally everything on both sides of the transaction. So this kind of environment, very simple to deploy, high benefit, unlocks all of the homework problems. And one would argue it also clearly helps you with the tremendous amount of efficiency on the operation side of this. All of this in one simple, what we call a workspace environment to drive things. You want to share resources, you want to share your calendars. We do a tremendous amount of file sharing. I mean, video delivered demos. I mean, anything you're doing, and including training, obviously, if you want to. But ultimately, this is our tool set. This is why you came to this webinar today. And this is why I know everything I just showed you, because this is the experiences we have repeatedly proven in all industries to really move the needle ultimately there. So With that, I appreciate it. One thing I do in every single one of these, obviously I slammed you a lot of information and actionable items, but I will provide in my recap today my calendar, my personal calendar for a 15-minute info section, because every business is a little bit different. It will not be a demo. It's to answer your questions about your environment or other things, or do we work with this, or can you help me solve multiple location deployments or on-prem or whatever it is, multilingual, whatever. Um, I'm here to share really the wealth of all of our years experience and great customers around the world. So again, appreciate the time. We do a ton of webinars and resources. Check them out. In this one, I'll link in some of the resources too that I talked about, from the metrics to lifetime value and other things that are very, very critical for you to put these puzzles together. If you're wondering just off cuff, how expensive is this? It's not. And so we have business models and plans for startups, literally two-person companies. Do we have Fortune 500? Yes. We range completely. Who do we work with? Everybody, literally professional services, government, SaaS companies, you name it. Do we work in regulated industries? Yes, all of them. So security wise, all of them. So couple of things again, especially security is very critical in a lot of the onboarding environments we're seeing today in customer types. So again, I appreciate everybody's time. I'll package this up. Everybody have a good rest of the week. It's getting warm in most of the places in the US, so time to be outside. And I appreciate the time. Thanks, everybody.